Today we have with us Ritu and Surya, founders of Wolf, a Jaipur-based collective whose work fuses sustainability, cultural storytelling, and recycled materials to explore themes of memory, decay, and renewal. Their installations function as artistic expression and activism as they turn waste into living archives of the environment, identity, and tradition. How would you describe Wolf's philosophy to someone encountering your work for the first time?
I think I would like to.
Sustainability.
I think I would like to think of Wolf as a movement. I would like to think of it as a way to gather up people and and move towards a better world. So I do think of Wolf as a movement. How do you think of Wolf?
Well, after the movement that where for sustainability, and these are the key words, things that we work with in Wolf.
That makes sense. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how did the project start? Like, how did you reach here?
Well, actually, that we were doing things only for ourselves for a long time, not for a long time, since maybe 2003 or 4 is when we kind of started doing things with scrap and discards. And at that point in time, it was only for ourselves. And then somewhere around 2012, a lady by the name of Timmy Kumar came over to meet us, where we work and play and live and all of that. And she insisted that we do things for her. She declared we were artists and said that it wasn't right if we didn't work outside of the gates of the farm. And that's how it really started in post 2012. And somewhere around the middle of 2013, I think we had decided what we wanted to call ourselves. We had decided what we wanted to work with and where we wanted to take it in a manner. But it all happened because of the pushing or the nudging or the absolute faith, and belief of this one lady, yes. And since then, actually, it's been the grand old ladies who've supported Wolf, or grand ladies, not quite old ladies, I think that's wrong. But it has been a lot of woman power supporting what we do and supporting our vision and our ideology. Timmy being the first one, Timmy Kumar of the Clarks Army being the first one. After that, there was a lady called Srila Chatterjee, who is now the founder of 47A and of Baro Market. She has been instrumental in taking our work outside of Jaipur. And since 2017, we have done a show every year in Mumbai with her. And I think that as well, to have someone who has that kind of unshakable faith that says that there is no other storyteller like you are. Also, as someone who pushed us to make individual works. I think before Srila came into the picture, we were doing a lot of large-scale ephemeral projects. We did very large projects for the Jaipur Literature Festival 2017 and 18. And we really loved that. We loved the idea of creating these spaces that are there only for the people who come and see it, and then that's it. And that there's no idea of taking a bit of it home. You take a bit of it home only in your headspace. But then it was Srila who really pushed us towards saying that no, I mean, this is whimsical and beautiful and very lovely, but if you want to have art support you, if you want to be, artist in that sense of it, where your work supports you, then you have to make works that sell. And I think, yes, she was instrumental in pushing us to make works that other people can take home. And then our third goddess, third lady who has been instrumental in our journey is Brigitte Singh, who's also a resident of Jaipur, and she has led us to many beautiful things in our lives. She has led us to understanding how important slow is. She has led us to understanding the importance of taking time to make things, of learning to say no, of and she introduced us to the garden. We do many stories which revolve around gardens and forests. That has been the muse and inspiration from the very beginning. and Brigitte has been instrumental in leading us to the garden. Before that, I think it was more wide, it was nature and forests and like that. But to get into a contained garden space, it was definitely Brigitte's light that led us there.
So, also, this all sounds wonderful. I'm wondering what drew you to like using found objects and recycled materials, because you said that at the beginning, before you were doing it professionally, you were still using those materials. So, was that a conscious decision, or like did that just happen organically?
No, that did happen organically. We were setting up the space where we live now, which is our studio, home, and everything. And well, my parents had a old property next to Udaipur, which was coming under the development scheme by the government. So my father took out many things that he could from there. In
Yeah.
the late 70s, and they were all put in huge stores. And when we were building our studio and home and farm, and which is now studio, it was well for hospitality then. So we kind of put everything, we used everything, the beams, the wood, everything that he had stored for all those years. And I think that led us to the path of
Reuse,
using
recycle.
sustainable materials, reusing, recycling, repurposing everything.
That sounds wonderful. And what like what led you to the theme of like gardens and like nature? Was it just like using those kinds of materials, or was that something else?
Well, definitely the lack of it, and that I think people are losing the importance of it, like to be moved by sitting under a tree or to be moved by a bloom. I think high rises and cement, concrete jungles are taking over. And from the very beginning, I think even when we were making things for ourselves, we were making large iron trees at the farm. That's how we started. And it was because the farm at that point in time had no trees. There was no green. It used to be a working farm, so it was agricultural land. There was no green cover in terms of trees, and so to start off making large iron trees. And that kind of stuck also because of the materials we were using, because of what we wanted people to see through it, what emotion we wanted to get out of them for it. And we both of us were completely on the same page where that was concerned, that let nature lead us, that we cannot go wrong if we let nature lead us. Yes,
It's a language. It's like speaking through flowers, and also telling the world that people need to stop and smell the roses. I mean, you can't just the idea of that.
Yeah. That sounds wonderful, especially because I personally saw your work at Round Them Oranges. So one of their exhibits had had a sculpture, and it looked like something that I could recognize, but also I couldn't place. So it looked like this creature, and there was like a lot of little parts to it. I think the same way that you're talking about nature, and it's like variety and how it's a language. I think that was really beautiful. I was wondering, like, do you think about like what like figures that you're making when you work with sculptures, and or is it just like an amalgamation of different things, and how do those come together?
I think when we initially started working, because we're not from a trained background, and initially when we started working, it was very important for a vision to be in the headspace before we started working on it. But now it's been year 12. This is year 12 maybe, and I think in the past maybe 4, 5, 6 years post COVID, maybe I would say, to trust instinct a little bit more, and to understand that you have to come in and put in the hours. There is no other way out. Don't wait for inspiration. Don't wait for things to fall into place in your head before you start working. Work every day. Work every day, and at some point while you're working, things will fall into place. And so moving from working in very fixed formats to now being completely fluid, and waiting for the puzzle to kind of fit, but not stopping work for that, to make sure that we produce something every day. Whether you're feeling like it or not, we come into the studio, we use our hands, we get things done, and at some point those things come together in terms of a story, or they come and form something that wasn't something that we had thought about, but which comes together and makes the perfect story. Yeah.
That sounds wonderful. Are there like specific like references or like periods of time of art history or just like places that you look to for inspiration, even if you're through the process just being very instinctive?
Well, miniature paintings for sure. Huge inspiration from the very beginning of our work. We have been drawn to it because of that much of a world and so much detail in it, and so much power, so much emotion, all of it. And so that has been from the very beginning a very deep influence in our work, whether it's the way of storytelling, the way of the art, all of that. Mythology for a bit was very interesting. Going back to our own roots, in a sense, it was. I think we were quite taken by them for a couple of years. There was, of course, Frida. I can't not say Frida because, well, of gardens and forests and the wild world around her, and the first one to be the selfie queen. So yes, definite influences of Frida. What else would you say has deeply influenced?
Deeply to these things. Otherwise, there's influence, or what do you say, inspiration everywhere around, depending on what you're looking for every day, how you're looking at it, how you're looking at things, I guess.
That's beautiful. Are there like things that are like personal or like social histories that you reference? Because I saw that a lot of your work incorporates like photographs and old photographs, but the way it does it is really interesting. So there was one piece called Peculiar Children where there was like a gas mask and like pictures of children. I thought that was really interesting, but I didn't quite know how to place it. So is there something that you're trying to explore? Yeah.
That artwork was inspired by the book Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. And so there was the demon, and there were all of these kids who have special powers. We've loved working with old photos because you get them everywhere. A lot of people just threw out the photos from their homes, and that really is that's our history, and that's the culture of our country, and that's like kind of holding that together. Interestingly, one of the shows that we had gone for and we had put out, we call it photo play, and this lady came to me and she said, don't they come and haunt you, these people whose photos you're using? And I had never thought about it like that, but in my head I figured how I give them a better story every time. It's a liberated story, or it's a story of breaking free or breaking out of the mold. And so very confidently to say, no, they don't haunt me, they come and thank me. Yeah. And photo play, I think also because of that, I think it's so much of the history of our own, and then to be able to use that as a layer in the storytelling is so beautiful. And many a time people have come into the studio. It's happened to us on 3 occasions that people have come in and randomly going through and seeing our photos and saying, oh my God, that's someone I know, or oh my God, that's my relative. I found there was someone who came in whose great grand aunt's photo was in my studio, which I had got from a kabadi wala. And I think beautiful things like that, which serendipitous in a sense, maybe.
That's really nice. I think that plays well into your ideas about nature too. It's like the world around us in a way. That's really beautiful. Are there also like specific traditions except just like our general history? And you also talked about miniature painting. So are there other like specific traditions and motifs that you're trying to preserve through your work?
Cultural preservation,
Yes.
which is by objects and things, like many objects that are actually obsolete, and I think like our son's generation would not even know what it was meant for, probably, if it wasn't for people like us who are putting them in works and giving them a new life altogether, actually. So I need to answer that.
Yeah, lots of objects that find space in the works. So yes, definite cultural preservation through the work that we do, through that,
Yeah.
to bringing them back back into the current time. And they hold their own stories, but they come with a new story as well. I think that as well, when we use these old objects very knowingly, that they come with their own history, and to use that within the storytelling for sure. It's not just there because of a form, it's also there because it's holding its own history, and to use that within the storytelling as well.
So, have there been times when you just like found an object that changed the like whatever you were working on, it like transformed it because of the fact that it came with that kind of history? Were there times when you found something that you were really moved by?
It changed, I don't know, but definitely the missing link, it's definitely completed a story, let me put it that way. When you find an object, it completes a story sometimes.
Many a times. I think we believe in the serendipitous finding of objects. We go to the Kabadi Bazaar in Jaipur every Saturday. Behind the Govind Dev Ji temple, every Saturday there's a Kabadi Bazaar. Also the fact that this idea of a Juna Bazaar is prevalent all over the country. But we've all become so obsessed with brand new that if it's scratched, chipped, slightly damaged, it's a no-go. For us, that's how an object comes home. It must be scratched, chipped, or slightly damaged. Otherwise, it doesn't come home in a sense, right?
Yeah. Aren't we all in a way?
Aren't we all in a way? Yeah.
That's also true. I think like a lot of your work is like obviously very sustainable because of this, right? Because you're using objects and like giving them a second life. But I think the way that you do it is more like less concentrated on like the utility of reusing objects and more about like the aesthetic and like the memory that comes with it. So are there other things that you found while working with these materials, like any challenges that you've faced or things that you've discovered about like, you know, the process of finding the perfect found object?
The challenges that we faced have been actually that we found something and then we started putting it into an artwork, and then you run short of the last 3 bits. And then it's like a wild goose chase trying to find, or those last 3 bits to complete it. Those have been real challenges that we've overcome, that we've thankfully always found a way out of. And sorry, what was the question again? Can you just
I was just asking about the process. So how is it trying to discover like how to find the perfect like found object when you're already working on a piece?
I think when we collect, we don't collect thinking of a work. We collect looking at it, and it speaks to us, and so we bring it home. It's not with the intent of saying, I'm buying this to put it into this artwork. You're buying it and bringing it home because it spoke to you. And then many objects will take years before they come into an artwork. There have been things that have been lying in the studio for 7 years, 8 years. And then suddenly, they'll appear and they'll say, okay, I want to go for this show. And that's how they come in. So I don't think there's a perfect object, but I think it's also about constantly looking and keeping your eyes open and collecting. Surya likes to call them our clutter collections. Fortunately, we have the space to be able to keep it, to be able to store things. And so there are many stores. It looks like chaos, but there's method to the madness. Somehow we know exactly what object lies in which store. Yeah, it's hard to believe, but it's true.
Yeah, I know. Even looking at like the studio behind you, it seems like that it's really beautiful, even if it's quite filled. Are there materials that you found like that throughout your 12 years of practice? Are there materials you found you've really loved, and like how has your process changed with those? Or how have you discovered it is working with these kinds of like not perfect materials or like unconventional materials at times?
I think that there were some stories also. There was photo play, which was with the photographs. So you enjoy working with the photographs, and then move on to the next thing that you find. And then
So there is constant evolution, and I think that is a natural part of it, whether it's how we are conceptualizing a story, how we are moving towards it. from moving from a very logical masculine space to moving towards a feminine, respecting your intuitive space. That has been evolution within the studio space. Just before COVID, we got this scrap material in the studio from a metal mesh factory, and now there's a lot of work in the past 5 years that has happened with that one metal. So is it the language in the studio currently? Most certainly. How long will it remain? I don't know. But for the past 5 years and for the past 2 or 3 shows, that material has been quite the hero of the show. So yes, it is evolution, but are we stuck to only that? No, there is that material which we convert into flowers of all kinds, and then there are other found objects with it that add to the story. So it's assemblage in a sense, but also craft, because there are these handmade flowers. Also craft narratives, that's another very important aspect of our work. Again, coming from an untrained space, that has been our training ground as well, to work with generational craftspeople. And Jaipur is such an amazing place for that. The old city of Jaipur is like a labyrinth of generational craftspeople. Whichever lane you walk into, you'll find some family who has been living in Jaipur since the time Jaipur was established and doing the same thing, living in the same place. I marvel at those stories and learn so much from them. And so, we keep trying to make sure that we involve those craft people in our works, not because we love the craft as much as because we love the craft person. This one person from the old city who traditionally would make lakh bangles and jewelry, his name is Awaz Muhammad. He is also a national award winner, and we've been working with him for the past maybe 8-10 years, 10 years at least. And in every project that comes along, we will try and figure how we can use him, even if it's in some small way. How do we use him? Because he brings so much joy. And when he comes with the work to the studio, he'll talk in poetry, he'll uplift the spirits. And I think that is such an important part of it as well. I think the art world is in a sense a very alienating universe. You're kind of by yourself and you don't have people around you as much to push you up, or sounding boards as well. I don't think very many artists like to kind of share ideas with everyone. Luckily for us, there's the two of us, and I think that's a big advantage for us, that we have each other and we can speak to each other about it. And then someone like an Awaz Muhammad comes, who's an octogenarian, an 80-year-old who comes in and speaks to us about our work, helps us through it, navigate it, and always in a good sense, right? Because although he's the generational craftsperson, he's the 80-year-old, he's the one who's perfected the material he works with, he does hold us in high regard, because he says about how the power of being able to tell a story is far greater than the power of being able to make an object like that. And he always stresses on that, and I think it's required. Artists need that. They need a little bit of an ego massage every now and then to keep going.
That sounds wonderful.
Thank you so much. Just one last question. I ask this to everyone, but what are things in contemporary art, or just like art in general, happening that you guys are paying attention to right now that really inspire you or just speak to you?
I think any art that uplifts, I think there's too much of every other thing that's happening around. I don't want to name artists, but I think I look at art that uplifts, there's beauty, they might be wanting to say anything, but I think there is.
For me, there are names. I'm definitely very, very inspired, and I look up and wait to see what she will do next. Veronica Saraf. Then Sakshi Gupta. I went for Sakshi Gupta's show in Bombay, and there was this one large piece called The Coop, and I started crying, and I think if art does that to you, that's what it should do to you. So I'm a huge fan of Sakshi Gupta's work because of that. In contemporary world, my God, Ritika Merchant, woohoo, for taking India the way she is. And sure, there was Manu Parekh and Manisha Parekh, whose work was out earlier, but I think Kritika Merchant in a whole different way. Yeah, those are the ones I'm looking at, and many more actually. Those are the ones that have just come to the head as women artists whose work I'm constantly looking out for. Yeah.
Ritika Merchant's work is beautiful. I completely agree. Thank you so much for doing this. I think I learned a lot, and it was really interesting to know about your process.